do you reach the point when all of your believing becomes one single act of faith in God?
Everywhere can have education and culture for their minds, dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirit.
We need leaders who are more interested in people than in private ambition.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Wisdom for Rulership today. My name is Emmanuel. Today I would like us to look at the topic on how policy making shapes and enhances human capital. I have connected with several people, the age bracket 40, 30s, and 20s. And I've realized that there is a lot of discontent in the souls of men. This isn't alien to Africa or Nigeria, it is global. Now, the reason for this, in my opinion, is because there is what I call a civilization overlap. What do I mean by this? Every civilization has its dimensions of knowledge and wisdom being dispensed for the sustenance and advancement of humans, human relations, and human capital. Right now, several civilizations are overlapping at the same time. Hence, the hastiness in people's approach to life. Hence, nations rising against nations. The desire to dominate, the quest for national survival, as well as the desire to become a world power, has consumed the leaders of this dispensation. Is it China? Is it Russia? Is it Iran? Is it the UK? Is it the United States of America? We see that most leaders are completely out of touch with reality, because that which is coming is beyond conventional. I always say this, and I repeat, I always say this. When there is a civilization overlap, most of the knowledge paradigms of the former order become almost obsolete, with very few elements in them still relevant for the next dimension of the global economy. Many people haven't come to touch with the fact that at this time, you cannot stay with that which you knew 5 years ago. Wisdom is summoning leaders of nations, systems, and structures to come up. The diplomatic orientations are being disrupted right now. With so much falsehood, things buried under the rug being brought into limelight, the defenses of nations that have all the while put up approaches to developing nations that puts the developing nation at their mercy, they are being judged as we speak. And so falsehood is being dragged from under the rug and brought to the forefront of affairs. People are now beginning to see the world for the way it is. Hence, the discontentment and the confusion. What is the question? Which way do we go? While people are thinking about this, I've realized that most people know the truth, but don't want to admit it. Without the God factor, the wisdom of men will fail. And so, right now, human capital is grossly underestimated and undervalued. Hence, the pursuit for artificial intelligence as the new order of the day is simply a sign that the The globalists no longer value the dignity of human life. They value machines more than people. Are we against artificial intelligence? Well, when there are no set boundaries and artificial intelligence begins to cross the boundary line of morality, then we know that something beyond innovation, something beyond creativity for ease of economic dealings is at work. I believe that it is to the advantage of Africa that we have not yet been so economically advanced, technologically advanced rather, because by reason of what is going on right now globally, we can look at the nitty-gritty, at the details, and understand that if we follow the line of innovation within the context of artificial intelligence the way most of the Western nations are going about it, we will enslave our own people. And so we now begin to craft innovation with guiding policies that exalt the dignity of human life, the dignity of human relations, and the dignity of human capital at the expense of human destruction. This is the wisdom that is required for shaping policies in Africa in the next dispensation. At least a major aspect of the wisdom required for the next dispensation. We have been trained to look up to the Western nations for survival. Our economic systems, though most people don't talk about it because that's all we've known over time, they are simply fading away. The Holy Bible states that it's only what God does that will last. The sooner leaders pay attention to this, the better. Our territorial integrity is at stake as a continent because we've gone into contractual agreements with nations that seek to redefine the concept of colonialization through economic wisdom. And then we begin to see, on the other hand, that right now, like Professor Lumumba would say, Africa is in the dinner plate of the Western nations. And I ask a question. Is it the fear of death? Or is it that we become too comfortable eating cucumbers that we don't realize that we are on the edge of the promised land? Leaders must now begin to discern wisdom for shaping policies in such a way that it increases the value of human capital. Africa is becoming the next economic hub of the world. But if this must be, it must be done in truth. Human capital isn't just about work. It's about work that gives people fulfillment from the place of building self-esteem while contributing to the corporate workforce. When policies aren't crafted in such a way that it advances the self-esteem of people, what you do is you make men become like cannibals. Men become almost animals. Frustration comes at its peak in the souls of men, and these men become chaotic and destructive in their approach. Their orientations become barbaric, and society begins to become uninhabitable, almost uninhabitable. This is the reality that we face. And except our leaders are outrightly ignorant or forthrightly unwilling to pay keen attention, Africa has gone through a lot of challenges, and it is time that we begin to wake up. And so I ask, do our leaders take the time to look at the policies that are given us from most of the global institutions that seek to grant aid to African nations? And most times they do. Do we take time to understand the details of the policies? I wonder oftentimes why we could have all of the mineral resources that we have, and yet our leaders take pride in making discussions on things like subsidies and all of that. Our territories and our natural resources may have been mortgaged. But I say, are there leaders who will be willing to pay the price to ensure that the value of human life once again in Africa is restored? We know everything. It's all over the place. There is nothing here that isn't being revealed at this time. However, globalists have set a machinery that ensures that the wisdom of leaders is smeared by pleasure orientations as well as self-comfort at the expense of territorial liberation. And this is the burden of leadership. Now, we need leaders who are wise enough to discern blueprints, territorial blueprints, and its intersection point with human capital and cultural orientations, so that people begin to tap into their territorial resources based on their inherent resources, where skill begins to meet with the right kind of natural resource, and then policies help to ensure that the relationship between skill and natural resource is advanced and enhanced to be able to suit the global frame of reference. This is how, in very simple terms, economies are built. What do we have as a nation? Do we have people who are passionate at the communal level? We have resources that are supposed to bring about development to communities. You know, I ask myself that governments still go to very interior communities in Nigeria and say they are putting up boreholes, and they carry that on the media. How appalling. A nation with so much wealth that in the past 3 to 4 decades has been living lavish at the leadership level. The expenditure has been more than several nations put together annually. And we still take pride in the fact that we're still trying to put electricity in some communities. When will we wake up? Leaders must understand the need for wisdom. You know, I look at Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria. That's a leader who understands the connecting point between God, the love for people, and the spirit of service. God, the love for people, and the spirit of service. This is the triangle that ensures that a society is built up in righteousness. When leaders desire to serve people, they will be able to craft the kind of policies that will enhance the dignity of human life, as well as boost human capital, to be able to ensure that there's a synergy between the corporate workforce, the policymakers, the judiciary, the executive arm of government, as well as their simultaneous integration, and how they pass this reality to the next generations to now begin to pick up blueprints by which they are also going to sustain that from which they picked from the previous generations, and then by innovation pass down a greater legacy to the next generation. We cannot, and I repeat, we cannot continue to turn a blind eye to the kind of policies that we make. I am strongly of the opinion that when leaders are about to go into political positions, during the debate sessions, if at all they will permit debates, let people begin to ask leaders about their policies and what and how they came about crafting those policies, so that we don't have leaders who have people drafting policies for them. We need leaders who can defend their policies. Let this be projects. At least, even if they don't eventually implement 30% of it, let us send our political leaders to school. They should read, they should train and prepare themselves. Because that's the point. Most leaders just transact in high places. They don't have a blueprint. And when they come on there, they just take anything. There is no spirit of service. There is no love for people. And most importantly, there's no love for God, who is the one who actually gives wisdom for rulership. And so we cannot continue to walk in ignorance. Leaders must now make up their minds. What kind of change do we want? We need to begin to integrate accountability into our systems. Accountability. You don't treat your fellow brother like a slave because you are in leadership. This is the challenge. The colonial master's curriculum is still deeply ingrained, etched in the memories of most of our leaders. And so unconsciously, they are working for the colonial masters without knowing. And we cannot continue telling ourselves. We cannot continue turning a blind eye to this. We must stand up and ask ourselves, what kind of policies are we making? Does it make people restive? Or does it give them a sense of hope for a brighter future? So much challenges round about the world. Hidden details of clandestine operations of globalist elites over several decades are being exposed right now. What are we doing about it? There is a generation that must now begin to rise up and speak truth. We must step out there and say, no, truth always prevails. Justice always prevails. The wisdom for rulership is the ability to be able to accommodate the dynamics of the spirit of justice and seamlessly transmit same into one's vocational endeavors. We have to come to that point where we understand that we must get it right, otherwise we enslave the next generation. I don't believe in criticism except where necessary and where it is constructive enough to provide a solution. But I believe it is time, because Nigeria is rising and there is nothing that can stop it. A generation is rising, and I believe you are that generation watching. And I hope to see you next week, even as you meditate on that which you've received. Thank you very much. See you next time.